Happy Sabbath, brothers and sisters. We thank God for taking us through all the week of this Sabbath day, may Him glorified forever. As we're going to begin our song service this morning, I request my sister Ida open with a prayer.
Let us believe as we pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you for this wonderful opportunity that we have gathered before your presence. Dear Lord, we want to begin our song service at this time. We pray that the angels may join us in this wonderful song as we lift your name up high. Let us all through, let us sing with the Spirit, and with understanding, for we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I request you to join us as we open our song service with hymn number 388. Don't forget the Sabbath. Don't forget the Sabbath, the Lord would have made. Of all the week, the brightest of all, the week, the best. It brings with both for labor, it tells of joy divine. It beams of light descending, with heavenly beauty shine. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Keep the Sabbath holy and worship Him today. Who said to His disciple, I am the living bread. And if with me we follow our Savior, He belongs. You give us all the fountain, whose streams eternal flow. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Day of self-reflection is golden hearts will spend in thankful lips to Jesus, the children's dearest friend. Oh, gentle, loving Savior, how good and kind thou art. How precious is thy promise to dwell in every heart. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Welcome, welcome, ever welcome, blessed Sabbath day. Amen. Thank you for singing with us. We are continuing with our song service with hymn number 432. Shall we gather at the river? Shall we gather at the river, where bright angels sing a throne? We His crystals light forever, flowing by the throne of God. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, the beautiful. Yes, we are going to go on with hymn number 248, Oh How I Love Jesus, requested by our brother Joshua. There is a name I love to sing, I love to sing His word. It sounds like music in my ears, the sweetest name on high. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Because He first loved me. In terms of my Savior's love, who died to set me free. It tells me of His precious blood, the sinner's perfect plea. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Because He first loved me. He tells of one whose loving heart can feel my deepest wound. Who in sorrow bears a part that none can bear below. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Because He first loved me. Praise be to God. You and I should love Jesus because He's the one who first loved us. And since He first loved us, then why not give Him our lives? Together, let's sing number 330. Take my life and let it be. Since He loved me and you first, then let me and you give Him our lives that He can take control of them. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my hands and let them prove out the impulse of Thy love, and the impulse of Thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for Thee. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from Thee. Take myself and I go, not a mind would I withhold, not a mind would I withhold. Take my will and make it Thine, it shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is Thine own, it shall be Thy royal throne, it shall be Thy royal throne. Take my love, Thy Lord, I know, and Thy feet is precious stone. Take myself and I will be this song service. Right now, I call upon those for Sabbath School to come and take us in this program. God bless you.
Hello everyone, my name is Apungo Radzirani and I'm a student here at Gema University and I am a theology major, and today I'll be sharing the mission story. The mission story comes from Finland, in a small town around 600 kilometers from Helsinki, the capital. Now, what's interesting, or rather what happens, is on a specific day, 3 friends are sitting in a room. That's Timo, Lena, and Annelies. And as they are sitting in a room, it's a Bible study. And as they are having this Bible study, Lena jumps up and says, "Something is wrong. Let us pray." And they go down on their knees. As they go down on their knees, a dark image is seen, or rather a dark figure is seen entering the room. And it moves towards Annelie. And as it moves towards Annelie, all that Timo and Lena can do is pray earnestly. And that's exactly what they do. They decide to pray earnestly. And when they start to pray earnestly, they see another figure entering the room. It is a lighter figure which appears. And this lighter figure, when it enters, it seems to chase out the dark figure. And the dark figure is seen standing at the door. And this staring contest happens for around 10 minutes. Finally, the dark figure leaves the room and totally disappears. The 3 are still left in wonder and fear and amazement as to what has just happened here. And as they're trying to piece in together the story of what just happened, they find news that near them a suicide had just been committed. And they realize that these 2 events happened almost at the same time. And they realize that these 2 events are not just, they did not just only happen at the same time, but they actually are related. Now, Annelie is still struck by fear, and she does not want to talk or say anything. So she remains quiet while these 2 deliberate as to what had happened. Timo suggests that no, he only saw dark figures move about. Annelie says she's certain she saw this. And as they're trying to understand what has just happened, Annelie drops a bombshell to them and says, "I actually have dabbled in my past life with evil spirits, or with spiritualism, but I have stopped now. Though unfortunately for me, the spirits still come after me." And fortunately for Annelie, these things stopped once she got baptized. Once she got baptized into the Adventist church, these figures and these spirits stopped coming towards her. And lucky for her, on this very same night that she had this encounter, it is said, she says that when she went to sleep, she saw the lighter figure entering into a room and sitting by her throughout the night. And for Timo, though, this was his first encounter with spirits, or with the great controversy between Satan and God. And unfortunately for him, though, it was not the last encounter he had. Later on in his life, Timo also decides, "I want to get baptized as well." And a night or so before his baptism, as he's sleeping, I don't know if you've had this feeling where you are asleep, but you feel that there's something or someone gazing towards you. Sometimes it does not happen when you're sleeping. You just happen to have a feeling where you feel that someone is piercing or looking at you. Even though your eyes are closed, you have that feeling. Timo had that feeling at that moment where he realized that someone or something is looking at him. He wakes up in his sleep and tries to pierce through the darkness to see who or what is looking at him. He could not see anyone. He could not see anyone, but could feel a presence in that room. And he started to pray, and he continued to pray. And when he was praying, he continuously heard a voice which says, "Do not get baptized. Do not get baptized." He opens his eyes, pierces through the darkness, still cannot see anyone, but feels a certain presence. Later on, the following day, when he inquires around, he finds out that there was a suicide in his area, not too far from where he stays. The threats, the suicide do not dismay him. He continues to get baptized. And indeed, later on, he is baptized and he becomes a pastor in the Adventist church. He continues his ministry, and his ministry flourishes to a point where at some point he and some other colleagues of his decide to go for a conference in Sweden. And as they are going for this conference in Sweden, while they're still on the ferry on the way to Sweden, during the night, Timo cannot fall asleep. He cannot fall asleep at all, and he decides to wake up and pray. He feels that something is wrong. He just does not know what is wrong. So he starts to pray. 2 hours go by as he's praying endlessly. And finally, the morning comes, and when he goes for breakfast in the morning, an older pastor comes by and says, Timo, what was happening with you? The Holy Spirit told me to pray for you. While they were still having this conversation, a third pastor enters and says, guys, you would not believe what just happened to me. And they ask him, what happened? And he says, I felt an urgent need to wake up and go and get some air, some fresh air. So I went out. And as I went out, I met a spirit, or I met a guy outside. I was convinced by the Spirit, and I met a guy outside who was ready to jump into the sea and kill himself. I talked to him and convinced him not to. We had a counseling session for an hour, and I convinced him not to jump into the pool. And as these pastors were dialoguing, they realized that these 3 events, or their 3 personal encounters, happened at around the same time. And this comes to Timo, and he realizes that actually this great controversy is greater than he expects. This great controversy is bigger than what he thought it was. Timo, now 45, is a communication director of the Adventist Church in Finland, and sees these 3 encounters with suicide and spiritual attempts and spiritual attacks as evidence of the great controversy between God and Satan. He sees this as evidence as well that God is in control, that God is in charge of all our lives. He sees this as evidence that God can never forsake us nor leave us in our times of need, because every time he prayed, there was a form of response from the Holy God. And I want each and every one to keep this in our hearts, never be dismayed, no matter what comes our way. Till next time, be blessed.
A special welcome to you, all our viewers. Once again, we are here at Seventh-day Adventist Church, Bugema University, Kampala, Uganda, for presenting to you the Sabbath School Lesson Study Discussion. My name is Vera Chifunda, Church Clerk, Bugema University.